Hello friends, so today's video is going to be a US versus UK book covers video. I've done a few of these as well as a US versus German editions, and I've done quite a few videos comparing just in general different editions of the same book, but I just wanted to kind of go back to US versus UK. These are the ones that we see so often. I know a lot of people in the US end up seeing UK covers and then they're like, oh my gosh, those are so much better. And I always wonder if UK readers think, oh my gosh, the US covers are better, or if they're like, yeah, we know ours are better. But either way, I have a few that are relatively newer, so I haven't really seen too many people compare these ones. I'm gonna go ahead and start with the one that's in the thumbnail, which would be She Who Became the Sun. So this is the US cover, and then this is the UK cover. Now, typically the UK edition does not have the fancy sprayed edges. If you saw that, I didn't want you to think that's what you typically get just by getting a UK edition. This is actually a special edition, but the cover art is the same. And then, like I said, this is the US edition. So when I saw this one, when I saw images of it, I actually liked this cover more. And then when I saw this one in person, I thought, okay, that's pretty cool. I'm not sure what it was about seeing an image versus in person, but I just feel like this is an instance where the images online just didn't do it justice, because I do think the details are really fantastic. And I like that the artwork looks very Chinese, because this is a Chinese inspired fantasy story. And it's so heavily pulled from actual history. So it's almost historical fiction. I have a whole book chat with a friend of mine who also read it if you're interested in learning more about this story. But I think that this one represents what it's being pulled from as far as the location, the time. But something about this one I think sort of represents the fact that there's a lot of military aspects to the story. I think it represents that a little bit better. And then this might sound really silly, but the way that the artwork is done up here, there's a lot of themes of destiny and claiming your destiny and making sure you don't do anything that pulls you away from your destiny. And I don't know what it is, but something about the imagery on this and the art style, I feel like it evokes that. I don't know why. I can't really pinpoint, but it's just something like this being so small and insignificant compared to how much at the forefront this is. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like they both represent different aspects of the book really well, but just holding them up, I mean, I feel like this one wins. Before they came out, if I just saw the images online, I would have said this one, but in person, I think this one takes the cake. Next up, we have Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. This is honestly a tough one for me. And the UK edition matches very well to the new book that has come out by the same author. So it's kind of an interesting situation where the author had the Spin the Dawn duology come out, and then they had a new book come out called Six Crimson Cranes, which kind of sort of takes place in the same universe, but you do not have to read one before the other. They're just very vaguely, like they reference the character that's in Six Crimson Cranes in Spin the Dawn. But Six Crimson Cranes, when it came out, it had both a US and a UK edition. I actually mentioned it in a previous Versus video, and both editions are gorgeous. However, when the UK edition for Six Crimson Cranes came out, they went back and kind of retroactively created a UK edition for Spin the Dawn, and the UK edition matches the UK edition of the other one. So when you see them on the shelf, it was over there. They were all lined up. When you see this duology next to Six Crimson Cranes, which will also get a sequel, so there's going to be 2 sets of 2, those are all going to go really nicely together. So this one has that advantage. I know that was probably a little confusing, so I figured I would put the covers all together here so you can see what I'm talking about. With the US edition here up on the top, you can see that Spin the Dawn and Unravel the Dusk, which are a part of the same duology, match really well. And then when they released Six Crimson Cranes, while they used the same cover artist, the style is very different, the font is very different, and so they don't look as much like they go together. Whereas with Spin the Dawn and Unravel the Dusk for the UK editions, those not only match one another, but they also, I would say, more so match the style of Six Crimson Cranes. So it's a little bit clearer that while they're different stories, they're in the same universe, where I don't think the US editions do that quite as strongly. I feel the need to clarify that this is technically a special edition, and the regular edition does not come out in hardback. I believe it's only in paperback currently, and it's beautiful. It's the same imagery. I think the color scheme is a little bit different from my addition to that one, so I'm going to put it on the screen so that you can compare. But oh my gosh, is this art style so beautiful. I think that the imagery is so pretty, and I just love the way that it pulls from what the character is experiencing. So this is kind of like a Mulan feel at the beginning, where our character disguises herself as a boy to take her brother's place, to compete in something, to become the emperor's tailor, and then it kind of shifts at some point and becomes something very different. But that part of the story, when she first goes from this small life that she knows to going to this big, beautiful place, I feel like it captures that by having that small figure and then this beautiful place. And then this, the bird, definitely is in the book. They put a huge emphasis on the bird, I will say. And then there's stuff to do with, it's called the Blood of Stars duology, and there's stuff to do with the moon. And so I like that they have that imagery here. I think they captured the Asian inspirations, of course, very beautifully here. But Spin the Dawn's US cover, I mean, this one I think captures the whole tailor aspect of the story. However, and this is actually a complaint from readers, is that that part of the story is more prevalent at the beginning and then it shifts. But it was very much a part of the marketing, as it was marketed as Project Runway meets Mulan. And I think this captured that marketing really well in that first part of the book. I think this captures that better. The bird is actually a much smaller detail, but it's kind of like a, once you've read it, then you notice it, because I don't feel like you notice it as much looking at this edition. There's also something to do with the scissors, and so I really like that we see that captured in the cover. You do technically get the scissors, but they're on the back of the other one. Still, I feel like that's part of the artwork, but I like that it's with the character here. And I've actually seen the cover artist for this. They do it with color pencil, which is amazing. I just think color pencil artwork is, it just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. The artist is, both obviously, the people who made these covers. These are some of the most gorgeous books I've ever seen. This one is beautiful in a, I don't want to say a more mature way, but something about this one, it kind of like pulls me in more. It's more intriguing, where this one, I feel like this one is just more of like, oh my gosh, it's so pretty. And I can't choose. Maybe I'll have to give this one, though this one might get the win purely because it matches the next books by her, but they're both so pretty. This next one is not difficult at all. It 100% goes to the UK edition because this is one of the most gorgeous books I have ever seen. And I don't think the details are captured as well when they're on camera and not in person, because it doesn't have that shimmer, the shine, the same way that She Who Became the Sun's UK cover does. And so it just kind of looks blurry unless I get it just in the right light. But this, I wish you could see it. I wish you could see it in person. It is so incredibly beautiful. And the US edition to me is just kind of bland. I just think it's a little, I mean, it did its job in capturing my attention. I remember I read that book because I kept seeing it at my local used bookstore, and every time I saw it, I kept thinking, what is this? And it's a King Lear retelling, if you don't know. I kept seeing it and kept wanting to read it, and then I finally picked it up and I read it, and I did greatly enjoy it. It is a very mature, not mature as in, oh, there's so much adult content, but I just mean it's a little bit more literary, I'll say, and it's not really a fun book. So it actually took me a long time to read. I always jokingly say it's very boring, but it's very beautiful. The writing is masterful, and the characterization, I think, is very nuanced to the point where, again, it's like almost boring. It's very dramatic, but it's also kind of dry and also beautiful. It's just slow. It's a slower book, but this one is just so beautiful. 100% goes to the UK. The next one would be Winter's Orbit. So I have the US edition, and I think I like the UK edition just a little bit more. The color choices in the UK edition were more unusual, and I think that they worked, and I think that they surprised me because I wouldn't have thought to use those colors together, and just the uniqueness of that, I think kind of, I like the color combination on the US one, but it's a color combination that I would have come up with. So I love highlighters, and when I'm making to-do lists, I often like to color code things, and I often go pink, purple, blue. So I feel as though I have to give it to the other one for the fact that it surprised me and it made colors work that I wouldn't have picked. But I do think that this particular story, it's a sci-fi kind of a forced marriage story, and then we see these characters getting to know each other as the story progresses. And it's a lot to do with how one character is, how they experienced trauma in the past and how they are sort of healing from that. And I would say that's actually kind of the main thing in the story. There's the sci-fi, almost murder mystery. There's a murder mystery and then like kind of a mystery separate from one another. But there's that aspect, but I feel like that's kind of just while the character is growing throughout the story. So I do think that the US one highlights the characters more than the other one. I think the UK one makes it seem like we're going to go on some adventure. So I don't think it captures the story as well. But I like the look of it, I think, a little bit more. Next up, we have City of Brass. I think I have to give this one to UK again. I like the details on the edges. I'm always kind of a sucker for when you put something along the edges. And the UK one, I like the colors that they chose, I think, more than the US ones. That's not necessarily true. I like the second and the third book's color choices for this series more than I did the first book. I don't love the colors in the first book, but the other ones do look really nice. But I think UK, I think I like all three a little bit more than I like all three for US. Next up, we have Jade Fire Gold. These ones might be the least alike out of all of them. So this is a really quite new book that has been released, and it's kind of a enemies to maybe lovers, or is it enemies to friends? You kind of read and discover as you go. And I think that we see the obvious character representation in the US one because they're literally on the cover. But then the UK one's a little bit more subtle by having the colors represent the different characters and their different backgrounds. So I liked that detail about that one. I think the UK one is very pretty, but I do think it's a little bit more generic. I like both of these covers. The US one has an interesting art style. So I've always said I don't usually care for characters on the covers of books unless you're going to do it in an artistic way rather than just the old school covers that most people don't like that have a real person's face. But if you do a really beautiful art style, like how we saw with the US Spin the Dawn, I'm all for it. And this art style I especially like because it's so different. It looks almost three-dimensional. So I wouldn't say it's my favorite art style ever necessarily, but I like how different it is. I don't feel like we have this art style on a lot of covers, at least not ones that I've seen. And I like the way that the characters they seem like they're working together, but they're facing different directions. I think that ties into their stories really well. So I think I gotta go US on this one. Typically, UK dominates and it's not even a competition whatsoever. I'm like UK all the way. But I will say, I think that maybe it's just that US cover trends are starting to fit a little bit more into my personal preferences. But even the ones that I picked UK for, they were not the easiest of decisions. I often liked the US ones quite a bit as well. So let me know your thoughts. Do you think that I just happened to have picked for this time around books where it was a harder decision, or do you think, because most of these are newer books, if not brand new books, so do you think that the US covers are getting better? I don't know. As far as fantasy goes, I feel like we're getting some pretty fantastic covers. I like a lot of the trends that we're getting in covers. But anyway, let me know if you agreed or disagreed. Let me know as I went through them which one you picked. Thanks so much for watching. Like I said at the beginning, I'll have other versus videos in the description bar down below. Have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.